An industry in crisis is the phrase that best describes the state of Irish tillage at the moment. 3 consecutive harvests, poor grain prices, and ever-increasing input costs have combined to totally floor sustainability levels within the sector. So where now for Irish tillage? I'm Agriland's Richard Halloran, and to help me discuss this point in some detail over the next 20 minutes, I'm joined by John Murphy, the Vice Chair of the IFA National Grain Committee, and Bobby Miller, the Joint Secretary of the Irish Grain Growers Group. Guys, thank you very much for agreeing to join me today.
No problem.
John, starting with yourself, we had the emergency tillage meeting in Naas last Friday. 1,000 farmers attended, an estimated 1,000 farmers attended. The Minister was in attendance. Do you think he got the message in terms of just how low the sense of tillage is at the moment in Ireland?
Yeah, Richard, I think, to be fair, the tillage sector turned out last Friday night. And I don't know whether it was out of anger or fear or what it is, but there was a lot of people in that room and they don't see a future in what they're doing, which is a very scary place to be if you're rearing a family or whatever it is, because the majority of the people was there, you see them yourself, for family people, family farms. They're finding it hard to see where they can go. And of course, then you're back to the last place, you're looking for support from the government. And as I said myself at the meeting, it's a sticking plaster is the 65 million. But if we don't get it, I don't believe we'll see next year, if you had that same meeting, there'd probably be 500 farmers at it, which is where we feel the tillage sector is being put under so much pressure from derogation, land costs, fertiliser costs, seed costs, chemicals. Machinery has just went out of hand. But when you see that many people turning up, especially for Friday night, we were a bit afraid would the people turn out. They did turn out. And I think the message has gone to the Minister. Whether he can do something about it or not is going to be our biggest problem. But like any chance we get, we would urge every politician to row in behind it, because when the tillage sector is gone, it's gone. I haven't seen a crowd like that since 20 years ago when we lost our beet industry. There was crowds like that, and that's a scary place to be.
Okay. Just to focus on one point concerning the 65 million euro. Is that a one-off payment, or is that a payment that can be made or should be made on an annual basis throughout the period of the current DAL?
Well, to put the confidence back in, tillage, I think that needs to run for a 5-year period. But if we can get it to keep us going, to get into next year, like planting will be starting in the next month of winter crops. But there's a lot of people saying to me that they're going to hold off. They don't feel that they can do this. They're looking at other enterprises. Some people looking at renewables, and it's just the tillage sector is going to go further and further down. And what point in time is it when you say we don't have one? When there's 10 or 12 big growers left in the country. Like, that's not a tillage sector. A tillage sector is family farms, mixed farming. It's always a bigger benefit to have it that way than 10 or 12 people running the whole show.
Okay. Bobby, we have the budget coming up October the 7th. It's a fortnight away. You've met the Minister, you've made your submission. Are you hopeful that there is a package coming out on the day in question?
We'd want to be more than hopeful, Richard. It's a necessity that the government react. And I was delighted to see Simon Harris here with you during the week, and he committed to something for the tillage sector. It's good that they're talking about the tillage sector that has been discussed around the cabinet table. So we are hopeful that something will happen. What comes is important as well, and how, if something comes, we can't preempt something, but if something comes, is how we go about securing the future of the tillage sector going forward. Our budget submission was about a 5-year plan for a tillage expansion and sustainability scheme. It was about marketing native Irish grain. It was about, we're constantly hearing about sustainability, biodiversity, and all this subject going forward, carbon footprint. We have that product, and we need the government to value that product. The government now first, and then industry as well. We are, from our point of view, investing in the tillage sector is cost neutral for the likes of Pascal Donoghue, because our carbon footprint is 300 kilos per hectare versus other sectors. So there's good reason to invest in the tillage sector. That's the point we want to make. Investing in the tillage sector is money very well spent by this government. And unfortunately, the investment in the tillage sector has been very poor up to recently. We're coming from a very low base of investment. We see TV and there's potentially been 80 million being spent on one particular problem in the livestock sector. We have very, very poor support, financial support, up to recently for the tillage sector. And the government must start putting their money where their mouth is. They have committed to it in their manifestos, so now's the time for action.
Okay. How do we bridge the gap between production of native grains and getting greater utilization of those same oilseeds and grains within, as an example, the livestock sector? How do we get the feed millers on board to commit to native grains as opposed to imports?
I think you have to go beyond the feed mills first. You need the users of what we produce to benefit as well. We need the dairy farmer, the beef farmer, the sheep farmer to benefit from you using native Irish grain. That's your starting point. Get people looking for what you have, and get those that using native Irish to be rewarded by the likes of the supermarkets, by the likes of the meat industry, by the dairy industry. They have to get involved in this, and then the feed mills will have to follow. Currently, it's as you know, it's a world market we deal in, a world commodities market. And as John touched on there, we're competing with the technology we use is making us uncompetitive. You like the genetically modified feedstuffs coming in there. 70% of what's imported into Ireland comes from outside the EU. And there's a very unbalanced playing field there that government policy must act on. We're looking for financial support, but we need strong policy from this minister and the government if it has any interest in saving the tillage sector in this country.
Okay. John, just coming back to you and reflecting back on the meeting at Naas, I mean, one of the points that consistently came through from the floor was the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, the upcoming review. Many tillage farmers on the night saying, our CAP payments have been eroded over the past 2 reviews of the Common Agricultural Policy. They want that stopped or possibly reversed. I mean, is there potential for that to happen? The single payment, that basic support that's available, can that be either maintained or increased?
Well, I suppose, Richard, the budget of the single farm payment is under the pressure, and that we all know will lead to a downward in the overall payment per farmer. But like the tillage sector, as you said, it got caught with convergence, and then the icing on the cake that really stunned us was the CRIS. That CRIS payment, because of the dynamic of tillage farmers, you're renting different farms, whatever it may be, that CRIS payment could be 3 to 4 times that lost. How do they reverse it? If the EU is not wanting a safe food policy, which I don't believe the CAP is anymore, it's more of an environmentally safe policy. Until they start realising that without a safe food policy, well, they'll end up importing a lot more from other countries because we won't have it. And that's where I would fear, can we get more money from it? It depends on how it's going to be distributed. Everybody is going to be looking for it, as we well know.
Yeah.
But it seems to be more environmental that they want it to go, which we don't mind which way it comes, but I'd rather be paid for having a safer food and a safer grains and pulses, oilseed rapes within our country, within Europe, rather than importing that. And we saw our vental or the arable fallow seems to be quite popular now all of a sudden. It's nearly a better payment than sowing a crop of corn, which that's a scary place to be for a tillage farmer. If they're wanting to import it cheaper, we don't know what's going on it, and yet they leave our land idle.
Okay.
It's a bit of a contradictory.
Yeah. So, Bobby, back to you. From a cap perspective, there seems to be maybe an acceptance is the wrong word, but yeah, acceptance that the cap budget is going to be maintained possibly at best where it is. Is there scope, do you believe, for the Irish government to come in and contribute more national funding towards the tillage sector without having to go to Brussels for permission to do that, to make those deals in the first place?
Yeah, food security is obviously vital. We're lucky enough in the country we live in that we produce a lot of food. But like John mentioned, our sustainability, our environmental footprint and all like that, if that's where they want to go with the budget, the cap budget, tillage farmers should be first in line to receive that funding because of what we have as a sector. Tillage is biodiversity in itself in this country, which is mostly grass-based. But biodiversity is going to be lost. We see figures out this week that they increased the population of the corncrake by 20% from a very low base. But if you lose tillage in this country, you're losing biodiversity. You're losing the likes of the yellowhammer, for example, that bird. So if they want to go biodiversity route, we'll take every bit of euro they can give us in that regard, because we tick the boxes they are talking about. So, like the current budget, the cap budget, 70% of tillage farmers are financially worse off currently because each year that passes, we're getting less and less money. This isn't the current cap, let alone talking about the next cap.
Yep.
So we've been hit hard in the previous caps, and if that happens again, like John says, the tillage area is just going to disappear. Yeah. So the government should step in. They should see the benefit of having a tillage sector in this country for themselves, if nothing else.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty certain in saying that 40% of the crops grown, the combinable crops grown in Ireland, are grown on rented or land taken on Conacre. And maybe John.
Oh, it would be easily that. I'd say it could be even more.
So how do we get a scenario in place that allows tillage farmers, and we're looking, given the current Teagasc figures, at another year coming in of very challenging incomes, towards 2026. There's no prospect of grain prices increasing, yet we do know fertilizer prices are going to rise in 2026. Other input costs are going to rise in 2026. So the other element within all of this is, as you've just mentioned, is Conacre prices. Is there any way that there could be land ring-fenced for tillage farmers? Or how do you balance the needs of, say, a tillage farmer looking ground to grow crops and a dairy farmer looking ground to milk cows, to have the required land area to meet his slurry spreading needs, his effluent spreading needs? How do you balance that from an IFA perspective?
Well, I actually think that, and it all ties back to the nitrates directive, the nitrates problem as well. I don't believe we have a nitrates problem in Ireland if we actually all sat down and really thought about it properly. The amount of slurry that has to be moved off a livestock farm to a tillage farm is probably, the figures are wrong in the sense it's too much of the actual slurry from that farm. Like if I split my dairy farm and tillage farm in half and said I'm going to export my slurry, well, my slurry is halved in value coming off my dairy farm to the tillage part of it. But it's all part of that joint up thinking. If there's a demand for Irish grain, which means a good inclusion rate in every bit of feed stuff that goes out, as Bobby alluded to get people to use more Irish grain is about education. There seems to be an awful lot of nutritionists wanting to educate people on the cheaper way of doing it. But let's think about doing it the most sustainable way of doing it. I believe is going to be the future. Like, as Bobby alluded to, our carbon footprint is the lowest carbon footprint on grain that can be in this country anyway, at least.
Yep.
So if there's a joint up thinking, the slurry is moved to the right places. Well, the dairy sector don't need the land as much as what's being pushed on them. And a lot of dairymen I'm talking to are saying to me, I don't want to rent this land, but I'm getting caught on nitrates.
Yeah.
So if there's a bit of movement around on the slurry, if a bit of joint up thinking, logically way of doing it, and have it travelling the least amount of miles that it has to, I think this thing could actually work out beneficial for everybody.
Yeah.
But until that joint up thinking comes along, and like I can say that it's within IFA's ranks that there would be joint up thinking, but there's also in the ranks where there wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And we all need to sit down and talk about this out together, along with the department. And Teagasc have a major part to play in this. With the advice and the education that farmers need as a livestock farmers to actually get the benefit from using Irish grain. Because, well, I know from using it on my own farm, once you use it, you won't go back the other way.
Gotcha. Turning then to the logistics very quickly, Bobby, of 2025-26, the growing season. I think it's pretty clear now that oilseed rape acreages are up 50%. But there seems to be a hesitant or reluctance on the part of growers to commit to purchasing winter wheat, winter barley seed. Is that a case, do you think, of guys just now simply waiting to see what comes out of the budget and then making a decision as to whether or not they're going to go ahead with the winter planting season?
Well, I think the first thing is tillage farmers are weighing up all their options going forward. It's not just about cropping. They're going to have a serious look at what way they're going to use their land going forward. Do they genuinely have to look at putting their land into grassland? Do genuinely, that's where they're at the minute. They're doing their calculations with their accountants, they're scratching their head. They need confidence from the sector going forward. Obviously, what comes out in the budget will be one key element of it, but it's not just what's in the budget. It's we need the drinks industry to respond in a positive manner, and we need feed mills to respond and merchants to respond in a positive manner. So it's a lot of key factors coming into play. And at last Friday night's meeting, there's more than tillage farmers in that room. There's merchants, machinery dealerships, there's agronomists. The worry on all those faces was very obvious. And we have a stand here at the Ploughing, and the number of farmers, tillage farmers coming in with blank faces, really concerned about their futures, was disheartening. Really was disheartening, Richard, to see it happening. You know, but I think if the government come good with their promise, but they must push policy as well to save this sector. And it is a case of saving the sector. We can see, and John will tell you this as well, we can see the sector acreage plunging in the next couple of years. We're already, we're just out of the land market currently. We can't compete in the land market currently. So do you go ahead and plant crops to lose money? You wouldn't advise anyone else to go into a job every day not to get paid. And I'll finish on that.
Okay. If the minister does commit, or we get from the budget a commitment to a fund, a support fund for tillage, can I assume that that money is required in tillage bank accounts ASAP, John?
Well, it is in mine anyway, Richard. And I'm safely say anyone that would be offered money at this stage would take it. Of course, like, look, we've had an early harvest. I suppose grain price is not fixed yet. Merchants and co-ops have paid out some money on account, but yes, there's a starvation there for cash. Definitely. Like anybody that's in a position to try even do up bits of machinery or replace some machinery, like that's one thing about the tillage sector. You can't just keep going with what you have. You will have to maintain. You will have to replace machinery, tyres on tractors, all that, and all that's after doubling in the last number of years. But there's a starvation out there for cash at the minute, definitely.
Guys, sorry, Bobby, do you want to come in? Just one last point.
Yeah, just on the budget. Like last year's 32 million, it didn't come in until January. Like budget 20 coming into 2 weeks' time, the funding won't be available till 2026.
Okay.
We'd want that as early as we can in the season. That's all I can say. January, February, as quick as we can get out to us, if there's funding for us, Richard.
Guys, we've had 20 minutes to talk about an issue that we could sit and chat for 4 hours about the issues that are there within tillage at the moment. Could I thank you for both coming and spending some time with me today? Thank you so much. Take care. Okay.